Great. So welcome everyone. As Sue said, second in a two-part series on the hour. First part was about naming the psychological realities of midwifery. And you can go back and find it. It was March the 1st. So a little bit more about who I am. I'm a midlife midwife and I'm working in a continuity of care team in London. I've also been involved even before I became a midwife in advocating for midwives and for their well-being. And key thing for you to know today is that as a coach, I've really been involved in connecting women predominantly and also nursing and midwifery leaders to their sense of self and sense of purpose in order to motivate them to do what they want to do in the world that they're in. And as you've heard, the book's coming out next month. So last time we took a little high-speed tour around the 5 mega mountains of midwifery. We took that tour in order to give us the vocabulary and the awareness, to give us the words and the experience and the ability to say, it's not me. It's not that I'm on my own in this, but it's this thing, the list you can see on the slide there, that's affecting me. And now I've got a map, I feel less lost. And we heard that there are what if moments where you get to experiment with what if things were to change in the following way as you go through the mountains of midwifery. So that's where we started last time. And it might be that you are right in the midst of those mountains right now. It might be that you're experiencing moral injury or trauma exposure on a day-to-day basis, or that you're watching others go through it, or you're processing an experience of having been there before. Either way, we want to get onto, well, what now? How do we strengthen ourselves? How do we enable ourselves to feel well, both in the day-to-day and also for the long term? So this brilliant graphic, and a shout out again to my illustrator, Joe Bradshaw, for these lovely, lovely illustrations. This one has so much practical detail in it. And you can see part 2 is all about engaging with mini exercises and adventures to set us up for new ways of thinking and being. And you can see all the practical things she's included there. And the exercises themselves are very practical. I've divided them into move the mind, move the body, and move the breath. And the move the mind exercises are designed to help us curate a stronger sense of self-awareness and also a stronger sense of choice, so that we have more agency in how to respond to the daily body blows of wherever we're working. And I, specifically use that strong language because it can feel so intimidating and so difficult to navigate our way through these mountains. And this is radical self-care. So I've been having debates with Sheena over the last few weeks about self-care and how often it's presented as the kind of very simple, almost simplistic things, which midwives are saying it's not enough, at the manicure or the massage, or it's good, but it's not enough. So what we're offering here is a whole smorgasbord, a choice of things which goes to that rooted, radical originally comes from the word rooted, the rooted place of feeling grounded in yourself, so that you can approach your entire midwifery life from a stronger sense of self. And it's a bit like, the soothing strategies, the simpler stuff is like a sea wall holding back this enormous tidal wave. And instead we're saying, well, how might it be that we are able to be stronger and manage the waves, watch them as they come, experience them in a whole different way. And one of those ways is acknowledging that vulnerability is our greatest strength. And that might sound like a contradiction, but vulnerability comes from the Latin word to wound. And it's a way of being more deeply aware of ourselves, our own wounds, our own needs. And of course, it's a vital leadership quality to role model to each other. And we're all leaders, of course. And it's so that we don't just keep on doing the things we always did in that place of just carry on. And vulnerability opens the window to this beautiful notion of self-compassion, being able to ask of ourselves in the moment this question on the slide: what do I need right now to alleviate my suffering so that I can go on bringing myself to serve the world and its needs? And Kristen Neff, which I'll send to Sue to put in the resources, has written quite a lot on that, so you might find her website useful. So we're going to do an exercise. In fact, we're going to do a series of exercises. And the first one takes us to a place which might feel quite protective. And it acknowledges that some of the environments that we find ourselves in mean that we feel exposed to other people's emotions, sometimes strong feelings of frustration or urgency or panic, or even anger or grief, of course. And that could be from families, or it could be from colleagues. And a wise colleague of mine once said to me that as she walks onto labour ward, she said, "Kate, I just put on my cloak, and it means any words or arrows coming my way can slide off rather than stick." So, of course, the cloak is an ancient symbol of protection. And I've deliberately used it because of that feeling of kind of weight and texture that it can bring in order to protect us from these things that can come our way. So we're going to spend 2 minutes just doing an exercise of visualization that takes us to that place of actually experiencing that cloak. So I'm going to get you to plant your feet on the floor, really feel them, and feel your back pressed against the chair or the surface that you're on. And really just begin by bringing your attention to your breath. Just watching your breath exactly as it is. And then start slowing and deepening those breaths. Taking the air right down into the bottom of your lungs. And begin to allow the out-breath to become just a little bit longer than the in-breath. And as you gently deepen and lengthen that out-breath, begin to let go of any tension you might be feeling in your body. Soften your tongue in your mouth. Touch the tip of your tongue to just behind your front teeth and let it rest there. And soften your jaw, and then your belly. And as you breathe out and your body softens on the inside, choose to place a soft cloak around your outside. A cloak that can protect you from words or emotions that don't belong to you. Really feel the warmth and the texture of the cloak. Notice what it's like to wear. What's it like to be in it? What do you notice about the experience of wearing it? Perhaps it's got a colour or a sensation. And as you breathe, notice that wrapped in the cloak, you can be the observer, a wise, even version of yourself. From here, you get to see situations calmly, as they actually are. And even time feels different when you're wearing the cloak. There's more space between words, and even between thoughts. You can hear the silences and the pauses, not just the words. You can see the bigger picture and choose how to respond. So take a deep breath now and another, and know that you can access your cloak at any time. Breathing and bringing some movement into your hands and your feet, taking a stretch if you like. Coming back into this room. And we're moving to our big why. This is one of my absolute favourite exercises and was originally introduced by a man called Simon Sinek. The link to his TED talk is on the resources. And it comes from a place of saying, wow, what is it that fuels us? What was our original motivation for going into this work in the first place? We spend so much time explaining what we do and how we do it, whether that's just in describing ourselves or suggesting a change that we want to see happen, rather than explaining what's at the heart of it. So capturing our why can reignite a sense of our purpose and even agency in our lives. And we talked last time about compassion fatigue as one of the mega mountains. And the flip side of this is compassion satisfaction, the sense of being connected to the care moment and really aligned in terms of our values and our purpose with what we're doing. And knowing our why can reinforce that and can sort of help us feel more connected in the moment to who we are, even in difficult circumstances. So I want you just to, very briefly, again, in 2 minutes, think about what your why might be. And you can use the pen and paper that you've so carefully prepared. And on the slide here, we've got an example from Dion, who's a newly qualified midwife, who says, and these are the sentence starters that you're going to use too, I want to live in a world where women from all different backgrounds have equal access to information, education, and fair treatment to empower themselves in health setting. Because it's not okay that Black and Asian women have such bad outcomes, etc. So those are the sentence starters. And you might, while you're thinking about it right now, like to consider what your deepest passions are. What are the things in the world that really rankle you, that really rile you, or indeed that really inspire you? What were the things that got you into midwifery in the first place? What was the big dream? What did you long for then that you might still want to be engaging with? What's your big why when everything else is stripped away? So a minute now, just to jot down those phrases. I want to live in a world where, because it's not okay that. And then spend the rest of that minute writing down what's true for you. Finishing those sentences. And this really begins to articulate what you stand for and what you stand against. And the clearer you can get on that, the more connected you'll feel to the work you're doing, the more you can find motivation when everything feels hard, and the more you can find the other people who share your why, which then enables you to create that kind of tribe of supporters and others who want to do some of the same things that you do in midwifery. And I know for some of you, this feels like a million miles away, but clarity on this kind of thing makes a real difference to the day-to-day. And so I'm going to is, of course, the next step. And in the book, I take you through, examples of some tiny projects that you might find engaging, depending on what your why is. Fantastic. I'd love to hear some of those, but maybe you can say them into the chat conversation later when we finish up with the presentations. Next exercise, again, pen and paper, and really quick, in 60 seconds, you're going to be naming 10 things you like about yourself. And my goodness, isn't this crucial? We so rarely articulate things that we actually like. We end up with a kind of cracked mirror set of impressions coming from other people or assumptions that others have laid on us about who we are. But you're going to spend 60 seconds now naming, using again those sentence starters, I'm, or I like the way I. Think about who you are at home or at work when things get really tough. What did you demonstrate yesterday? When do people turn to you for help? So don't worry if you get stuck. Just use some thoughts around that and start with the sentence starters, setting a timer now and go. Twenty more seconds. Just let it flow. Enjoy it. Fantastic. If you haven't written 10, then go back to it after we finished and see if you can find some more. You're really rather beautiful, by the way. Another illustration from Jo. It's a pear tree, but this idea of like the hanging fruit, the ripe fruit, ready for the taking. And doing these exercises, it just helps you to see more of yourself and become more self-aware. And finally, a little exercise inspired by Sheena, who at one point a few years ago said, listen to your heart and the mother's heart rate. No, listen to the mother's heart and your heart as well as the baby's. Am I right, Sheena? She's nodding at me. And it's inspired to enable you to stop, even in the midst of the craziest shift, maybe as part of an hourly review, or maybe as part of, as you're coming and meeting another woman in clinic, and you've literally got time to pick her up and bring her back to the room. But you've got 60 seconds and you're going to take it. So in this 60 seconds, you're going to, in a moment, place 2 fingers on your pulse. So perhaps do that now and just first notice your pulse. And then we're going to breathe together. So you can use this image of box breathing in, hold and out if you like, or any other lengthy breath that you choose. So for 60 seconds, we're just going to notice our own heart rate. Hopefully, as you notice and listen, you're noticing that your heart rate's reducing as you breathe deeply. And hopefully, you're also noticing the position of your body and how you might just readjust it. So almost as if you need to document it, you're taking your own pulse at the same time as noticing other people's. You're so good at reading the room and reading what's needed, physiologically and psychologically, but we're so bad very often at noticing what's going on with our own bodies. And the next 60 seconds, it's 120-second exercise, is drinking 500 mils of water. So go ahead now, pick up your glass and drink. And drink lots. And I know you're all thinking, when will I actually get to go to the loo next? But hydrate in this moment. And even if it's you bringing another woman in a packed list into clinic, you're then thinking, what new stance is going to help me here? What new position with my body or with my mind is going to help me engage with this conversation? And maybe it's a request to the woman, or to the team leader that day, or to a colleague. Can you send my bloods with yours? Or whatever it is that's going to make your life a little bit easier. So this is just 2 minutes of resetting, returning you to your body and allowing you to be with yourself before you turn back to the world. So a little reminder as we finish of the importance of small steps. We're not trying to leap across the canyon, but saying, what can I put in place that's really small and really manageable, that's going to make everything feel more tolerable in the day-to-day. And then finally, just as we finished last time, don't feed the fears, but feed the fire inside ourselves instead. Thank you very much and look forward to your questions later.